The chamber of the Grand Galactic Council shimmered with light, its dome stretching so high it disappeared into the stars above. Hundreds of alien delegates sat in tiered seats, their colors, shapes, and voices blending into a chaotic sea of life. Hey, the greatest powers of the galaxy gathered to speak of wars, trade, and the balance of civilizations. On this day, however, the chamber buzzed with laughter. At the center, projected in holographic light, was the image of a blue-green world called Earth. Humans, scoffed a scaled ambassador whose tongue flicked like a whip. Primitive creatures, short-lived, violent against themselves. They will burn out like fireflies before they ever become a threat. The council roared with amusement. From the shadows of the chamber, a thin ambassador stood. His skin was pale, his robes heavy with the insignia of a neutral observer species. His voice trembled as he spoke. You laugh, but you should not. The humans are spreading, faster than anyone has seen. They colonize without fear. Poison worlds, frozen worlds, even deserts where no other race days live. And they do not just survive. He paused, his voice breaking into silence. They thrive. A hush settled for only a moment before the chamber erupted again with cruel laughter. Thriving, bellowed a warlord from the iron-clawed Dominion. His mandibles clacked as he mocked. They throw themselves at death and call it courage. They are prey animals playing at predators. Prey animals with claws, whispered the nervous ambassador, though few heard him. At that moment, the central screens lit up. Holograms flashed, images of human colonies appearing in red dot across a galactic map. Systems long abandoned by other species now burned with human settlements. Worlds with toxic atmospheres, radiation storms, endless volcanic ash, all carry the human banner. The laughter faltered. One delegate leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Impossible. No species survives on worlds like these. The ambassador nodded slowly. No species, but them. They adapt. They change themselves. They endure what kills others. Where we see death, they see challenge. The council chamber grew uneasy. For the first time, the murmurs of worry outweighed the sounds of mockery. They are spreading too fast, muttered a reptilian general. Faster than the charts allow. Their ships multiply. Their colonies grow without pause. They breed like vermin, spat another. No, said the ambassador with quiet certainty. They rise like fire. For a long moment, silence hung heavy. Then the council's supreme chair rose, his massive form towering above the rest. His voice rumbled like thunder. Then it is simple. If humans are fire, we will snuff them out before they burn the galaxy. The decision came quickly, too quickly. Votes lit up across the chamber, one after another, glowing in favor of containment. The council did not debate mercy. It did not consider peace. It only feared. And fear, when united, is more dangerous than any fleet. The ambassador watched as the tally reached its end. 90% in favor. The motion passed. Humanity was to be contained, isolated, crushed before it could grow further. A murmur ran through the delegates. Fleets would be assembled, embargoes placed, borders closed. Humanity would be pushed back into its tiny cradle, and if it resisted, exterminated. But the ambassador's eyes did not hold victory, only dread. They believe they still have time, he whispered to no one. They believe humans are small, but they are already too late. Far across the galaxy, light years away, humanity itself was unaware of the storm gathering. On Earth, ships launched daily into orbit. On distant colonies, workers carved cities into stone, mined mountains of ore, and planted crops in alien soil. Children grew up beneath foreign suns, their laughter echoing where silence had once ruled. They were not stopping. They were not slowing. For every obstacle, humans found a solution. For every hostile world, they adapted. They learned. They endured. And though they had no place in the Grand Council, though the galaxy mocked them as reckless, they carried within them something no other species could match, a will that refused to break. Back in the council chamber, the lights dimmed as the meeting ended. Delegates filed out, whispering among themselves. Some mocked, others worried, a few even trembled. But in the highest balcony, hidden in shadow, an ancient observer watched. His eyes, older than empires, narrowed at the thought of humanity. He had seen civilizations rise and fall. He had seen predators claim dominance, only to vanish into dust. But this was different. Not prey, he whispered into the dark. Not vermin. Something new. Something dangerous. He turned his gaze back to the holographic map. The red dots of human expansion pulsed like embers scattered across the void. And embers, when left alone, grow into flame. The ancient being closed his eyes, as if mourning what was to come. The galaxy did not yet understand. The council laughed, their fleet prepared, their arrogance unshaken. But out there, across the stars, the fire of humanity was already spreading. And soon, no war, no fleet, no decree would be enough to contain it. The age of laughter was ending. The age of fear was about to begin. The fleets of the Grand Galactic Council moved like storms through the void. Hundreds of warships, bristling with weapons, pushed toward the human frontier. Their commanders carried orders that were clear and merciless: contain humanity, crush their colonies, and erase their ambition. For the Council, it seemed a simple task. Humans were new to space. Their fleets were small, their technology borrowed and clumsy. They were not an empire, merely a young species rushing too fast into places it did not belong. And so the Council's admirals promised their governments a swift victory. They boasted the humans would surrender within weeks. Some even spoke of enslaving them, turning their energy and courage into tools for alien masters. The first strike came at a place the humans called Cryan for. It was not a world meant for life. The skies were green with poison clouds, the soil black with heavy metals. The air could kill in a single breath. For centuries, no species had ever claimed it. Even the hardiest alien colonists had abandoned it as cursed. But when the Council fleets descended, they found something impossible. Humans. Mining stations dug into mountains. Domes of glass glowing with light. Factories pumping smoke into toxic winds. And on the barren ground itself, men and women in thick suits marched without fear, carrying tools heavier than their own bodies. The alien soldiers landed, their weapons gleaming, their banners raised high. They expected panic. They expected the humans to run. But the miners did not run. The first shots rang out, warning blasts meant to scare. Explosions cracked across the dark horizon. Dust rose in choking waves. Yet through the smoke, the miners kept working, their drills still chewing into rock, their machines still pulling off from the poisoned soil. The alien commander roared an order. Fire. Bolts of energy scorched the human domes. Towers collapsed in flames. At last, the miners dropped their tools. But not in surrender. They picked up weapons. And the battle for Cryan 4 began. The aliens expected formation, discipline, and fear. What they faced instead was chaos. Chaos sharpened into something terrifying. Humans fought like no soldiers they had ever seen. They used the mines themselves as traps. They turned drilling equipment into weapons. They lured the enemy into tunnels, collapsing the rock upon them. Some fought with rifles, others with knives, and some with nothing but their bare hands. The aliens were stronger. They were faster. Their weapons were deadlier. But the humans would not stop. Even when boned, they crawled forward. Even when bleeding, they struck again. They fought as if death itself meant nothing. Within hours, the alien troops were forced to retreat to their ships, their numbers broken, their morale shattered. From orbit, the fleet commander stared at the planet below in disbelief. This was supposed to be simple, he hissed. His subordinates avoided his gaze, their silence louder than any excuse. Reports streamed across the galaxy. Cryan 4 had not fallen. It had held. The humans had stood against the Council's armies, and won. The news spread like wildfire. In markets and taverns across alien worlds, whispers grew. They fought the Council and lived. They fought without fear. They are not prey. And in the dark halls of military command, fear took root. For centuries, the Council had crushed new civilizations with ease. None had ever resisted. None had ever dared. But humans were different. Back on Cryan 4, the miners gathered in the ruins of their domes. Their faces were black with soot, their bodies bruised and cut. Yet they stood tall, lifting their makeshift weapons high. The first human victory in the stars had been written, not with strategy or numbers, but with sheer will. The Council responded with fury. The defeat was called an embarrassment, a mistake. More fleets would be sent, larger and stronger. Humanity would be made an example. But among the soldiers who had fled crying for, a different word spread, a word in their own language, never before spoken of outsiders, Deathworlders. For to them, it was clear now, humans were not merely colonists. They were children of a world that tried to kill them every day. Storms, quakes, predators, plagues, Earth had shaped them in fire and hardship. Where others saw death, humans saw life. Where others surrendered, humans adapted. And for the first time, the galaxy began to understand. The humans were not prey. They were predators. And predators, once awakened, do not forgive. The Council swore vengeance. A fleet larger than any in living memory began to gather at the edge of human space, its weapons shining like 1,000 suns. Admirals promised to erase the shame of cry and fall. Politicians vowed humanity would kneel or die. But whispers of doubt spread through the ranks. The first mistake had been made, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Armada arrived like a shadow that swallowed the stars. Hundreds of Council warships, bristling with cannons and armor, dropped from faster-than-light travel into the Sol system. Their engines burned white, their weapons gleamed red, and their banners of domination filled the void. The order was clear: destroy Earth. Admiral Zorath of the Council stood at the bridge of his flagship, his eyes glinting with cold certainty. Crush them quickly, he commanded. Show the galaxy that humanity is nothing but noise. The fleet obeyed. Warships spread like vultures around the fragile blue world. Missiles were primed, lasers warmed, cannons aligned. The Admiral waited for panic. He waited for human cries of surrender, for transmissions begging mercy. But none came. On Earth, the alarms had long since sounded. Cities blacked out their skylines. Civilian factories converted into weapon forges. Aircraft carriers became orbital launch platforms. In every nation, soldiers lined up not as separate armies, but as one. For the first time in human history, the nations of Earth were united. The Council expected chaos. Instead, they found resolve. When the first barrage of fire rained down, Earth answered with fury. Missiles streaked from hidden silos deep beneath deserts and mountains. Lasers mounted on satellites sliced through the dark. Swarms of smaller human ships darted forward, weaving between the massive alien vessels like wolves among giants. The battle erupted into chaos. The aliens had numbers, power, and experience. But the humans had something else, a refusal to yield. Fighters slammed into enemy hulls, ramming with suicidal precision. Crews overloaded reactors, turning their dying ships into blazing weapons. Boarding pods shot across the void, carrying squads of human marines who fought tooth and nail through alien corridors. Everywhere the aliens looked, humans were there, bleeding, burning, but still fighting. In orbit, the Council destroyed the first line of defense. Dozens of human ships crumbled to dust. Yet as the smoke cleared, more emerged. Civilian freighters had been armed and thrown into the fight. Even orbital construction stations had been refitted into crude, spinning cannons. From his flagship, Admiral Zorath watched with growing unease. "They fight like animals," he muttered. "No discipline, no order." And yet, his mandibles clicked as a thought formed. "They are winning ground." Below, Earth itself became a battlefield. Alien troops landed in burning cities. They expected fear. Instead, they met resistance from civilians armed with nothing but hunting rifles, knives, and determination. Entire neighborhoods fought block by block, ambushing patrols, cutting supply lines, and vanishing into smoke. The aliens were stronger. They were faster. But the humans fought with something no weapon could measure. They fought as if defeat was worse than death. Zorath's fleet began to fracture. Reports flooded into human ships ramming capital vessels, of Council frigates vanishing in nuclear fire. And still Earth did not fall. From orbit, the Admiral stared down at the planet, frustration twisting into dread. Half his fleet already burned in the void. His officers avoided his gaze, their voices shaking. "This was supposed to be easy," whispered one. But nothing about humanity was easy. In the war rooms deep beneath Earth's crust, generals and admirals studied the chaos. They were exhausted, blooded, but unbroken. "We are not fighting to win," one said. We are fighting to survive, and survival is enough. The word spread across every bunker, every trench, every command channel. Survival was enough, because humans understood something the Council did not. A predator cornered is the most dangerous of all. The siege raged for days. The skies of Earth burned red with fire. Oceans boiled under orbital strikes. Cities turned to ash. But still, on the ashes, humans fought on. And when the dust cleared, something impossible stood revealed. The alien fleet was retreating. Admiral Zorath, once so certain, gave the order himself. His flagship turned, engines roaring. He left behind wreckage, burning cities, and half his fleet reduced to scrap. The siege of Earth had failed. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. Humanity had faced the full power of the Council's armada and survived. The whispers grew louder. They cannot be broken. They fight beyond reason. They are not prey. They are predators. In hidden corners of the galaxy, oppressed species lifted their heads with new hope. If humans could defy the Council, maybe they, too, could rise. And in the halls of power, the Council trembled. They had thrown their greatest fleet at Earth and had not won. The mistake of crying, for had been dismissed as chance. But now the truth was undeniable. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not temporary. Humanity was coming. And the galaxy had only just begun to understand the storm they had awakened. The galaxy had expected Earth to fall. Instead, Earth still stood, scarred but unbroken. The siege had ended not with human surrender, but with the retreat of a shattered Council fleet. To many, it was unthinkable. To humanity, it was only the beginning. Across the battered world, factories roared back to life. Where cities lay in ruins, new shipyards rose. Soldiers who had fought in the ashes trained new recruits. The defeat of the alien armada did not bring peace. It brought resolve. For the first time in history, humanity looked at the stars not with fear, but with hunger, and they struck back. The first counterattacks began as raids. Small human fleets darted into enemy space, striking supply lines, ambushing patrols, vanishing into the void before the Council could respond. At first, the aliens dismissed them as reckless, but the raids grew larger, bolder. A single human destroyer would take on 3 enemy cruisers, cripple 2, and ram the 3rd. Squadrons of fighters swarmed like hornets, darting through defensive fire to tear apart ships many times their size. Humans fought with a style the galaxy had never seen. Their tactics were unpredictable, almost insane. They ignored losses that would have broken other armies. They turned desperation into advantage. An alien commander once remarked, "When you face humans, you do not fight their ships. You fight their will, and their will is endless." The Council fleets began to falter. Every trap they set, humans found a way to break. Every stronghold they built, humans tore down with fire and steel. And as the war spread, something unexpected began to happen. Other species, small, oppressed, long forced into silence under the Council's rule, began to watch with new eyes. They saw the humans not only fighting, but winning, and hope, a thing long dead in the galaxy, began to breathe again. Smugglers carried supplies to human fleets. Saboteurs struck Council bases from within. On distant worlds, enslaved peoples whispered the name of Earth as if it was salvation. And in the languages of countless races, a new word rose, spoken with awe and fear alike. Death Wolders. It was not an insult. It was a warning. For all had learned of Earth's true nature, a planet of storms, quakes, predators, and plagues. A world that had tried to kill its own children for millions of years, only to make them stronger. "Now we see why they are what they are," whispered a Council scientist as he studied reports. "They are not mad. They are forged. Their home itself taught them to endure what we cannot." Still, the Council would not admit defeat. The fleets grew larger. Resources poured into war. Entire economies were bent to the single purpose of crushing humanity. But the more they threw at the humans, the stronger the humans became. They learned. They adapted. Every battle gave them knowledge, and every loss became a lesson. In the span of years, the once young species became seasoned veterans. Their fleets, once small and improvised, grew into war machines, Sleek, deadly, efficient. Their soldiers, once miners and farmers, became legends whispered across the stars. Yet even in victory, there was a darkness in their eyes. They remembered the siege of Earth. They remembered burning cities and dead families. Humanity did not forgive. Humanity did not forget. On the frontier, a captured alien commander begged for mercy. The human officer only stared, his voice cold. You brought war to our home. Now we will bring it to yours. And so the tide turned. Humanity no longer fought for survival. They fought for dominance. From world to world, the Council's grip began to break. Fortress planets that had never fallen trembled under the relentless advance of human fleets. Admirals who once mocked them now feared even to speak their name. In the Grand Council chambers, voices once full of arrogance now quivered with doubt. We cannot hold them, one admitted. Every time we strike, they rise stronger. They are not a species, muttered another. They are a storm. And storms cannot be contained. From the ashes of their first defeats, humanity had risen into something greater, something the galaxy had never seen before. They were predators, yes, but they were also builders, warriors, survivors. And with every battle, they were claiming not just victory, but destiny. The turning tide had come, and soon the flood would sweep across the stars. The war that began with laughter had become a nightmare. For centuries, the Galactic Council had ruled without challenge. Its fleets were unmatched, its laws unquestioned. Civilizations had risen and fallen under its shadow, all crushed by the weight of its armies. But now, those same armies were breaking. World after world burned as human fleets swept forward. They did not march like conquerors. They struck like predators, moving fast, striking deep, leaving ruin in their wake. The Council tried everything. Massive fleets, traps carefully laid, fortress planets armed with weapons older than human civilization itself. But nothing worked. Humans adapted too quickly. When the Council unleashed warships with impenetrable shields, humans overloaded their own reactors and rammed them, tearing open armor with suicidal fire. When ambushes were set in asteroid fields, humans detonated the rocks themselves, turning the battlefield into chaos that no one could control, except them. Every defeat made the humans stronger. Every setback taught them new tricks. Alien generals stared in disbelief as the reports came in. Colonies lost. Armies wiped out. Entire fleets gone silent. One commander, shaking with fear, said it aloud, "They fight like they want to die. How do you stop an enemy who does not fear death?" The Council gave no answer. On the front lines, humanity showed no mercy. They remembered the siege of Earth, the burning cities, the slaughtered civilians. Their fury burned in every battle. Human Marines stormed Council strongholds, fighting room by room, hallway by hallway. They took losses that would have broken any other army, but they never stopped moving forward. A fortress world called Vela Prime became the Council's pride, a planet laid in defenses, guarded by fleets, and armed with weapons that could tear apart moons. For generations it had been considered unassailable. It fell in a single month. Human fleets arrived not with overwhelming power, but with relentless pressure. They struck supply lines until the defenders starved. They jammed communications, isolating garrisons. They sent waves of Marines through tunnels blasted beneath the crust. When the final assault came, the defenders collapsed in terror before the humans even reached their command centers. The Council was horrified. Vela Prime was not just a fortress. It was a symbol. And now, it was gone. In the Council chambers, fear grew louder than arrogance. Delegates screamed at one another, demanding answers, demanding someone to blame. Admirals promised new victories, but their voices shook. They no longer believed their own words. The galaxy was watching. Species that had once bowed to the Council now whispered of rebellion. Smugglers carried weapons to human allies. Slaves rose up in distant mines, chanting Earth's name as they broke their chains. Every victory for humanity sent ripples of defiance across the stars. And still, the humans pushed forward. To the galaxy, they had become something more than soldiers. They were legends. Stories spread faster than the truth, of lone human ships destroying entire fleets, of soldiers who fought for days without rest, of civilians who turned whole cities into traps. The aliens gave them many names. Some called them monsters. Others called them saviors. But one word echoed everywhere: Death Worlders. The Council's armies, once feared across the stars, now trembled at the thought of facing them. Soldiers deserted, fleets refused orders, and the humans never slowed. On the bridge of a council flagship, an admiral watched as his final line collapsed. His ships were burning, his troops routed. He turned to his officers, his voice breaking. They were supposed to be contained. They were supposed to be weak. What are they? The answer came from a terrified aide, his eyes wide. They are the end. The war no longer looked like a struggle between empires. It looked like a storm consuming everything in its path. And at the heart of the storm was humanity, bleeding, scarred, furious, and unstoppable. The last council fortress remained, Zirath Prime, a world so heavily armed it had never even been attacked. The council poured everything it had left into defending it. Fleets stretched across the stars, weapons charged, armies prepared for the final stand. They swore that here, at least, humanity would be broken. But deep in the shadows of human war rooms, commanders studied maps of Zirath Prime. Their voices were cold, their resolve unshakable. "It will not stand," one said. "No fortress stand forever. Not against us." And so the galaxy braced for the final battle. The Council had once ruled everything. Now, it clung to a single world, and humanity was coming for it.